You ever have one of those mornings where you step out of your truck with your keys in hand, just craving a hot shower and 5 minutes of peace, only to find a total stranger sprinting out of your front door wearing your bathrobe and screaming at someone named Carla to bring her the cereal? Yeah, welcome to my life. Right then, as she flew past me, yelling that I was the trespasser on my own property. Her husband spit orange juice all over my floor while some clipboard-wielding HOA officer declared with absolute certainty that I had never lived here, couldn't live here, and wasn't allowed to even stand on my own porch. Meanwhile, their little dog stood on my kitchen island, eyeing me like I was some wild animal that wandered in from the yard. All this in the first 10 seconds. I swear even the craziest Karens would have been proud. Now, that day was supposed to be nothing more than a quiet return home from a 3-week work trip. I was half awake, mind on autopilot, just thinking about my own couch and my own coffee. Instead, I got dropped straight into some kind of suburban fever dream, people I'd never seen making themselves at home, acting like they belonged, and I was the criminal. It started with Denise, the HOA officer, marching right up to me like she was the sheriff of these streets. She had this voice that could cut sheet metal and a look on her face that said silence itself was some kind of personal attack. She demanded to know who I was and why I was attempting unauthorized entry. I laughed. I mean, what else do you do? But she was dead serious. Threatened to call security if I didn't explain myself. I held up my keys. She looked at me like I was a toddler with a fake badge. Behind her, the couple just carried on arguing about toast, wandering through my living room totally at ease. I swear the audacity was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. And as I pushed past Denise and stepped inside, the man glanced up from my couch and said, "You're early." Like I was late for my own home invasion. The woman, still in my monogrammed robe, pointed at me and shouted that I was breaking in, all while completely ignoring the fact that she was literally wearing my initials. I demanded to know who they were, and just like that, they said they were Carla's parents. They'd moved in at her invitation. Denise, for her part, jumped in with a dramatic speech about lease violations and HOA compliance while I stood there half expecting someone to yell cut and hand me a script. Who was Carla? I didn't know a Carla. Never met a Carla. Never gave any Carla the keys to my kingdom. But Denise blocked the door like a linebacker, waving some mysterious folder and insisting her records were flawless. I asked for proof. She started rattling off vague regulations and muttering about internal verification delays. Meanwhile, the couple kept up their act, complaining about my AC settings, the milk in my fridge, the neighborhood schedule they were already used to. I started to feel like I was the interloper. Denise lectured me about respecting current occupants and following HOA dispute procedures. I almost lost it when the man asked if I could carry in the groceries they just had delivered, like I was the butler he forgot to tip. That was it. My patience broke. I told them as calmly as a man can when his home's been hijacked that every last one of them needed to get out now. Denise threatened to fine me. The couple looked offended. The level of crazy was getting Olympic. I walked through my house, their clothes in my closet, their towels on my racks, their food in my fridge, their shoes lined up by my front door. These weren't squatters, they were settlers. Someone had let them in, made them comfortable. I found myself asking, who was Carla really? Why did the HOA believe her? And how long had these people been living in my house? The answer wasn't coming from Denise. She just paced around giving me legal lectures. The couple acting like they owned the place called Carla, insisting I was unstable. Their suitcases were neatly stacked toiletries by the sink crossword puzzle half finished on my table. It was like they'd always been here. I laughed, honestly laughed, when Denise said I could be cited for harassment if I kept disturbing the residents. That's when I called the police. That snapped the couple out of their calm. Denise tried to shut it down, told me the HOA would handle it, but I reminded her that breaking and entering wasn't an HOA issue. She was shocked I actually knew the law. While waiting for the cops, I checked the backyard, found their folding chairs and grill set up, dog toys scattered all over my lawn. I even grabbed the mail. There were packages for them. A furniture delivery coming soon. They were planning to stay. Back inside, I demanded answers. The guy, Bruce, finally admitted that Carla had told them she managed the property for a friend who moved abroad. Nora, his wife, swore up and down they had paperwork, but what they handed over looked like a kindergarten craft project. Fake stamps, sloppy handwriting. Denise still backed it. I nearly lost my mind. Cops arrived. Everyone scrambled, telling different stories. The officers took one look at my deed and license, then eyed Denise's records like they smelled something sour. They finally asked, "Who is Carla, and what's her official role?" That's when things went quiet. Denise said Carla was a temporary volunteer assistant who must have misunderstood her job. The couple repeated their story but had nothing to show. The cops told them to pack up and get out while they investigated. Denise tried to object, but the officers told her HOA authority doesn't trump property law. The look on her face, priceless. As they left, one officer quietly warned me. Something about this stank. He'd seen squatters before, but never with this kind of inside help. Carla wasn't just a volunteer, she was manipulating the system for her own gain. That thought settled in my gut like a stone. After they were gone, I found little traces everywhere. Notes, newsletters, reminders about neighborhood events I'd never attended. They'd integrated themselves deep. Someone had vouched for them. That someone had power. That afternoon, Denise showed up again, this time stiff and anxious. She wanted to clarify the situation. She wouldn't say Carla's name once, just called her the volunteer. I finally asked, "Why'd you defend her so hard? Why'd you refuse to show me the HOA files?" Her answer was rehearsed, said Carla. Just misunderstood things. I pressed harder, threatened to call the police again. She left in a hurry. Out front, the neighbors were all out checking their mail, but really they were watching the show. George, the old guy next door, came over and admitted he thought the couple were my relatives. Carla told everyone that. She'd only been around 6 months, but already ran the place, events committees, you name it. Not just a volunteer, someone running a long con. Later, I pulled up the fake paperwork. Again, stamps were wrong, signatures crooked. I started digging. Found out Carla's name didn't appear in a single official HOA email or meeting note. She wasn't even supposed to be here. She was a ghost operating behind the scenes. This wasn't a fluke, she'd planned it. That night, my security system logs were wiped for exactly the days I'd been gone. Someone with the code had deleted the footage. And wouldn't you know, a week before my trip, the HOA sent out a questionnaire asking for travel dates and emergency contacts. I'd filled it out without a second thought, handed my absence right to her on a silver platter. Next morning, a delivery truck showed up with the furniture the couple ordered. The driver had instructions if I refused, he was to call Carla at a backup number. It made my skin crawl. Denise came storming over again, acting shocked, trying to say I had to accept deliveries for disputed residents. I asked where Carla was, why she never appeared when the cops came. Denise dodged every question. Her desperation was showing. That's when I called the locksmith, changed every lock, reinforced every door. The locksmith pointed out the old frame had faint scratches, like someone used a master key. That matched the timeline of the deleted footage. Carla wasn't just manipulating paperwork, she had real access. That night, surrounded by evidence, I realized I needed someone who knew the HOA's history. I went to see Mrs. Collins, the oldest resident on the block. She told me everything. Carla was the daughter of a disgraced former board president who got booted for running illegal occupancy scams. Carla grew up watching every trick. She didn't need a title, she had the connections, and Denise was her puppet. Just as I pieced it together, George showed up warning me there was a closed-door HOA meeting in the morning. Denise was telling neighbors I was the problem, stirring up trouble, maybe even violating the rules myself. Then the phone rang, an unknown number. Carla. Her voice was smooth as ice. She regretted the complications, said misunderstandings happen, offered to resolve things quietly. But then she warned, subtly but clear as day, that fighting the HOA could make my life very unpleasant. I told her I had proof that the police were involved. She laughed, said, "You'd better be careful making accusations you can't prove," then hung up. I barely slept. By the time I walked into that HOA meeting, my heart was pounding. Denise tried to set the narrative, painting me as unstable. But George backed me up, describing exactly what he saw, the couple, the weird stories, Carla's manipulation. That cracked the room open. I spoke, laying out the fake documents, deleted footage, tampered locks, Carla's threats. Before the mood could shift, Carla herself strode in polished gold, every word rehearsed. She spun a story about protecting my property, about misunderstandings, about how I was overreacting. But Mrs. Collins stood up and told the whole truth, Carla's family history, the legacy scam, the buried scandals. Silence swept the room. Right then, the police walked in. They'd been tipped off. Suddenly, Carla's composure cracked. Denise tried to shield her, but the officers announced this was now a criminal investigation. The board suspended Carla, immediately banned her from any HOA access. Carla shot me a look that could freeze steel, then stormed out, Denise trailing behind her. The room exploded in arguments, neighbors realizing how badly they'd been duped. When I got home, the welcome mat was empty. For the first time, no threats, no tricks, but you know what? I know it's not over, not with people like Carla. That kind of manipulation, that sense of ownership over other people's lives, it doesn't go away easy. I locked my door, finally let out the breath I'd been holding since all this began, and stood there for a long time just listening to the quiet, letting myself believe just for a minute that maybe this really is my home again. So let me ask you, what would you have done? How do you fight back when the very people meant to protect your community end up being the ones invading it? Drop your wildest HOA stories or your take on justice down in the comments. And if you've ever had to stand your ground against neighbors, against bureaucracy, against a system that tried to push you out, yeah, I want to hear about it. Hit that like button, share your story, and let's remind the Carlos of the world some houses just aren't for sale.